if you're a farmer and you know how to farm, you can plant hemp. You know what I mean? You can do it. Like, you may not be the best at it, but you can do it. There's nothing stopping you.
Right.
To be a processor, there's
science,
science, millions of dollars, regulatory concerns that are much more, like that are so detailed, because it's the final leg, before it actually gets to the consumer almost.
And knowledge of the product you're purchasing. So really, in order to be a Hello, good morning. Whenever people come on, some people will come on. Anyways, so tell me about how'd you get into this industry?
I started at the bottom of this industry. I was a trimmer on the hill in NorCal in 2018 or so. And so I was working, and I had a friend who I didn't want to keep doing that job. And so I had a friend who invited me to come up north and recommended me to somebody. And I was like, yeah, I got to go camping and get paid to camp, And so, did that for a few weeks. After that, went back to regular life, did some stuff. But then also that I had several friends in SoCal who were, in the industry. And so I was talking to them. I was down in San Diego, and I went to go help them out just to do some trimming and just some random stuff, because I used to live there and I wanted to be by the ocean for a bit. And after a few days of working with them, they asked if I wanted to come on as one of their managers. They were going legal, out of the gray market, moving over to Palm Springs. So I went with them. I was a facility supervisor, grow facility supervisor, and an extraction manager there, and set up a CO2 laboratory. Was running that. And, that was really my start in the industry. Last year, a couple years ago, I left that job and went back to school, got my MBA at USC. And while I was there, I did a lot of networking while I was there. Kind of was known as like the cannabis business guy. So people had questions, came to me, and it worked out. Met one of the co-founders of this company, and he mentioned he was just about to graduate from law school. He was mentioning that they were converting their 5,000 acre alfalfa farm over to hemp, and mentioned it to my classmate. He said, you should talk to my friend. Started talking to him about processing. Had my old partners from San Diego, who I was out with in Palm Springs. They'd gone back to San Diego. They came up. One of them's a chemical engineer. He's our director of technology now here. And then his brother, I've known both of these guys since we were kids in Seattle, actually met in middle school. But his brother's he's been growing. He dropped out of UC Irvine when he was 20. He's 32 now. He's been growing since then, like all over. So all three of us, I run business operations now. Danton runs the extraction. He's the director of technology, and Jared's director of cultivation. And so we do a lot of, we run the processing side of Green Rock Hemp Holdings, our parent company.
Okay, very cool. So I actually noticed that when I was looking at your LinkedIn today. Did I hear you say you have 5,000 acres?
So we have a 5,000 acre farm, which is really actually like 10,000 acres, but we did 325 acres of hemp last year. We're doing 700 acres this year.
And what are you growing for?
For extraction.
All for extraction?
We are doing some smokable flower, but it's it's a smaller. I believe it's 10 acres or so, something like that.
Okay. Wow, it's funny when I hear people in any other industry and they say, hey, I got into it, or I'm new to the industry. Your start in the industry, you say was a trimmer, but real quick you became a director of operations or running an entire operation, right?
About 4 years or so.
Yeah, about 4 years from bottom to top. And even now, when someone's been in the industry for a long time, you've been in the industry for quite a while. I'm new to the industry at a year. You've been in the industry, but really from the beginning. Tell me about your partners. How long have they been in it for the whole time as well?
They've been in the industry for, basically years, each of them. So these are, I mean, we were partners. Now we're all, I guess we are partners. So we came in, as I said, we run the processing side, but now we work for Green Rock Hemp Holdings. So we're no longer, we originally thought they were going to hire us on as consultants to build us out. When they flew us out to Utah, they were like, we just want to hire you. So yeah, it worked out. But Danton Brown, he's our director of technology. He's a UC San Diego educated chemical engineer. He's been in biotech and working as a chemical engineer till about 2-3 years ago. But then also he's been doing extraction, doing, his own work in cannabis processing, in the gray market, but also just throughout, with many different people. And then Jarrett, who's his brother, said he was studying bioengineering at UC Irvine, and he dropped out and just started growing. And he's been growing for the past, I mean, he's 32 now, 33, and he was 20 when he did that. And he's probably the most knowledgeable grower I know. I don't like to use the term master grower because everybody uses that term, but the way he puts it is he's made every mistake that there is, so he knows how not to make those mistakes anymore. But they have a very science-based approach, which I appreciate in this industry, because it can be hard to find. For example, when we went out to Palm Springs, we took over a 35,000 square foot grow facility. Like 18 rooms, had about 20,000 square feet of grow space or so. And when we took that over, there was no CO2 in any of the grow rooms. And we were like, what's going on here? And we found out that the old master grower said he talked to the plants and they didn't want CO2. This is the industry that we've been dealing with for so long. So I very much, like my partners, are very science-based, they look at it as they see how we can scale. They see what it can be, which I very much appreciate. Too many people get lost in that small batch grow and things need to be perfect. And you got to understand when you start working with, as the industry is legalizing, and we start talking about scaling up, and when you start talking about providing the entire country with products now, not just niche markets, then you have to be able to think bigger. And my partners do that 100%. And then we combined with Green Rock Hemp Holdings. They have they have a lot of business regulatory experience. They have a lot of retail experience. They're out of Chicago, but they have a lot of business in Asia, in Japan, and China. And so they've always really been able to take our cannabis and hemp experience and really meld it with their business, regulatory, production, manufacturing, all of this experience, which has really helped us create, I think, something special like in this industry. We're trying to bring professional business production, pharmaceutical grade practices, quality management, validation tracking to the industry, which it hasn't had really before. And that's
absolutely. So you're talking all the language I enjoy talking about when we talk scalability and how do we really grow this and create regulations. When you say scalability, where do you see the industry going compared to where it's at now and where it's been, right? Where do you really see the market and the need?
I mean, I'd say the biggest thing is just in the professionalization of the industry and standardization of products across many different types of, just, how do I say this? When someone goes, when you go to we'll talk with THC, not even just CBD, because it's easier. When you go to a dispensary, even if you're getting, the same thing from the same grower, a lot of, over a month, 2 months, it's going to be different. CBD, it's the same thing, because so many people, when you get your CBD product, especially your CBD products, people become attached to those. This is mine. You become very loyal. But when that brand or whatever, they're when they can't source all of their CBD, all of their biomass from a single source, when they're getting it from brokers and when they're needing that changes the terpene profile, it changes the cannabinoid profile, it changes the flavor profile, everything. And so this is a huge deal. People don't want to have new medicine every time they take medicine or different medicine. They want it to be, and this is what I mean by standard. So many people have this idea that it's going to take away from, what makes the industry special, and that's always going to be there. There's always going to be small batch growers. There's always going to be, quality, private reserve type, whether it's, smokable flower or high quality vape or anything in, CBD, THC. But that standardization and that professionalization is what's going to create, it's going to get, that's the mainstream. That's going to, and then when you're talking about supplying millions of people with, an anxiety medicine or a pain cream or, something that they can take to help their everyday problems, that's, really that's not affecting their life in a negative way, like that's something that, needs to be, really, it does need to be standardized so people know what they're taking and they can make an informed decision about it and then recommend it to other people. So I think that's where a lot of the just as the professionalization, the standardization, the tracking, making sure that things are, it's not what you say just on your product that time on your label, but it's every time you deliver a product, it's what you say it is.
Steve had a question. I think you already answered it. Where's your plant material sourced from? You guys are growing from seed to distribution and now partnered with or a arm of, is it Green Rock, right? And then they take the product and manufacture it. From there, where is the product where's most of the product going to?
They don't take the product and manufacture. I'm the one that has the final product. And so we have, just to go through real quick. So
you have the consumer product?
No, our business is B2B, is those raw materials. And then we do have a consumer product, but it's a much smaller section of the total amount that we produce. So we start out as we're fully vertically integrated. We have a genetics and seed company in Sonoma, California. We partnered with UC Berkeley on for all of our genetics and our strains. And then we have a 5,000 acre farm in Utah, in Green River, Utah. We did 325 acres of hemp last year, 700 acres this year. That's where all of the biomass from our products is from our raw materials is from. Then we have at our processing facility, that's where we process in the raw materials and we sell them on to whichever, honestly, any brand that's interested, as long as they're willing to, show that they're also into, professional tracking and they want to make sure that they're not just kind of throwing it in willy-nilly. So that's where our main, that B2B. And then we also have a B2C brand that's being launched in the next 45, 60 days. But it's going to be, it's not necessarily linked with our B2B brand very much. We're not trying to compete with any of the people that we supply. It's a brand we're going to start by selling a bunch of, we're selling it in China first, and then we'll be launching it here in the US as we start to make those relationships.
Why in China? Just because that's where your partners are?
So our partners have a lot of, basically, so the chairman of our company has been doing business in Japan and China since the 90s. It's US based out of Chicago. He's from Chicago, but he's just always had a bunch of business there. And so they have a lot of distribution and outlets that we can already use. It's a lot of retail, like TV selling, retail, things like that. So when it comes to a B2C brand, we already have those connections over there to be able to distribute.
It'd be nice to see their market and their product be cleaned up over there. So I'm glad to see that you're actually moving clean, good product. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love to keep it here also, but it's very refreshing to know that a lot of the concerns we hear about product are coming from over there that are just, it's dirty. So yeah, it's nice to know that at least you're moving clean product over there also, right? I had a question for you. I wrote down focusing on, and I don't remember what that was supposed to be. This isn't very good. Technology, when we talk about like your tracking from your seed to your shelf, are you using any type of technology so that then when your purchase or somebody is purchasing your product, they know exactly where everything is? Or how are you tracking all of that for your buyers?
Yeah, so it's not any sort of specific technology. It's just a comprehensive pharmaceutical level quality management system. So we hired Sequoia Consulting. They're our I.S.O GMP and quality management consultants. They do, it's their first hemp based operation, and they were very excited to work with us because they work purely pharmaceuticals. So they did for Roche Pharmaceuticals, Gilead, which are both quite large, and several others. So they have implemented a pharmaceutical level quality management system. So when it comes to, we have lot sampling, batch representation, tracking. It's all part of it's instead of one technology, it's we from our on the farm, we're doing, we're testing materials independently, also third party, of course, by law, as you always do, but we have our own HPLC analytical laboratory in-house that we use to test our own products. We do batch sampling, we do random sampling, so it's all part of a system, so that any biomass that comes in, any products that are being made are being tested, being tracked. So we always know every batch, we can see all along the chain exactly, when it was made, where it was converted, where it was extracted, all of these things.
And then that's all just available to your buyer, I would assume, right? That's awesome.
All on products, we have a QR code as well, even our B2B products, so you can track this information.
Excellent. Can you explain a little bit about what it means for GMP or for a lab to be GMP certified? I understand, but I think that this is a huge piece of the quality control and understanding, the difference between a scalable quality lab or certified lab versus some of these other manufacturers.
Definitely. Following good manufacturing practices is a must, especially thinking that hopefully that long-awaited FDA stance and white paper is coming out here, hopefully around Q1 of next year. But good manufacturing practices are key in order to, just to create a quality product, but a standard, consistent, regular product every time that you deliver it. And then this also ensures that you're following the regulations that are needed for, it's the simple ones that are needed for creating, dietary supplements or anything like this. This is just standard in any other industry. If you're manufacturing and doing industrial level production, you need to be checking maintenance, you need to be checking logs, you need to have your, proper training for your employees, everything. This is all part of good manufacturing practices. And basically it's saying that if you follow these requirements, that this is what will, if as long as you're following these requirements to the letter, then you have good manufacturing practices. Basically,
they're set up right in every other industry. Like you said, in nutraceuticals, there are certain rules or SOPs that are just not set up as general practices within industry. So I think that recognizing or almost following some of those other practices are what are going to make us successful, right? And
yes,
until
exactly.
standards and regulations are put in place on a federal level, or as they're put in place, staying up to date on those, right? And I think that it's a matter of education and understanding that every bottle of product we buy is not made the same.
Exactly.
Really utilizing. When you said the FDA, tell me a little bit about how the FDA really affects, different rules or regulations that are coming down, or changes that are coming down can really affect your business. I know that when they came in at the end of last year and really put the hammer down that CBD is not a consumable product or cannot be listed. What did that do for you guys, and what do you see changing from the FDA in Q1?
That didn't really do anything for us, just because we're not marketing anything as a consumable or anything like that right now. But it obviously affects a lot of brands who may be doing that, but it definitely affects the brands that can get into this industry. I've had many things from like multi-level marketers to nutraceutical and supplement companies to everybody that are talking about, literally have just said we're following CBD a lot. We can't get into it until the FDA puts out a stance. So the FDA, when it comes to consumables, they're the Food and Drug Administration. They say this is if something is safe or not, for the entire country. And so once that stance comes out, it will open up the floodgates for mainstream industry, from the ones I just mentioned to honestly any industry that could ever infuse something, for them to get into that with CBD, really, as long as they're not selling jewelry, they can, if it can be infused with CBD, somebody's going to try it. So
listen, it's going to happen. Pretty soon we'll be wearing jewelry made up. Really, we already broke necklaces, and it's already, yes, you're exactly right. It's I do see it, or I could see that it affects you in the sense that there's a big amount of product out on the shelf right now because there's this hold up on the big manufacturers being able to put product in there, put CBD in their drinks, you know, when we get these big companies.
Sorry for having to do this. It was just too hot outside.
No, I kind of figured that's
what I was like, I have to move.
Saw you walk in. Have you considered or thought or plan on growing on any of your acreage fiber, and then on your extraction side, considered the extraction or refinery for plastics and rubbers?
We've thought about it, but in order to basically on our extraction side and for plastic rubbers or, you know, herd fiber processing, it's a completely different system. It's a completely different processing operation and industry. So we would have to basically create a whole new, and then also you wouldn't want to cross-contaminate. We wouldn't even be able to use the same farm necessarily because you wouldn't want to cross-contaminate industrial hemp with regular hemp, you know what I mean, while you're really at all. So there'd just be, it's a whole different operation. So we have not looked into that. I mean, we've looked into it, but we are not currently considering doing it just because of it's, we want to get this one down before we start doing anything, you know.
Sure. I think that's a lot of the discussion. I had somebody reach out again yesterday about natural products for cell phones, specifically looking for cases or parts made out of hemp. And it's going to be a refinery. I see the oil and gas industry coming on board because it's a very different process. It's a different plant almost. It grows different, looks different. But yeah. I just had somebody make a comment that I find really interesting, and you're probably really familiar with this. The only way for CBD products to be broadly accepted in the industry needs to follow the Nutraceutical company standards, protocols, and get GRAS statute. And it's generally regarded as safe. Are you familiar with that? I didn't even realize that was really a thing.
Yeah. Probably it looks like dietary supplement level, which is even higher, is going to be the level that they're going to come out with. So yeah, GRAS is part of their cGMP, is part of their, if you're I.S.O registered, that's going to be a big thing, especially as it becomes an international product. So I definitely agree with that. I think the dietary supplement industry is the standard. That's what it's going to look like.
Interesting. Very cool. So where else do you see the industry going? Where do you see, what's new in your business? Where do you guys see yourself in a few years or 5 years?
Few years or 5 years, hope to be, honestly, if things work out, we'd like to keep building this up for, 3 to 5 years, but realistically, if once that FDA paper comes out and things really start to move, I could really see that's what I see as a lot of generic drug makers, a lot of large nutraceutical extraction type of people that make lavender and people that make essential oils and all this other stuff. They're going to be buying up operations, left and right, because once it gets going, it'll take forever, and it'll take too much time and money to start from scratch now that it's things. So they'll want to buy up the best run operations. So I would say that's where the industry is going in that. Sorry, I had to come to the bedroom. It's the only cool place in the house right now. That's where I see the industry going, whether we like it or not. You've actually already seen it where there's a company called Casimira, who's a processing operation that they recently got bought out by I can't remember the name of the company, but they're a very large generic drug maker, and they didn't even get bought out. Sorry, they got $50 million investment for 20%, so a $250 million valuation, and that's to upgrade their facilities and add better processing. So that's where I see the industry going in CBD, at least, because it's already federally legal, is people trying to get into, or not people, sorry, other industries start buying up the best run processors, growers, genetics companies, things like that, so that then they can have this for their own supply chain and just hit the ground running, because they're going to need, for example, essential oils companies or an MLM, a multi-level marketer that has, however many they have, because that's one thing we look, it's Utah. You guys, this is Utah. So, there's plenty of MLM. So that's a
industry we've looked at, and I've had multiple MLMs look at me or come to me and or say to me when I've talked to them, we're very interested, just we're holding off until the FDA comes. So I mean, when you get these large MLMs that have, you know, $500 million in revenue a year or whatever, you know, coming in, they're not going to start from scratch. They don't know this industry, so they're going to buy up the best run people. So I see people that are, you know, following, you know, as I said, GMP, grass, following, you know, getting the proper certifications, making sure they're, you know, they're not cutting corners like we've all always done, you know, in this industry for so long. You know, it's because that's what you have to do in a gray market. You know what I mean? It's when you don't know what's going on, you gotta just go for it, you know. But and then we get used to that, but you can't do that anymore. You can't be selling, you know, full spectrum distillate across state lines anymore. You know, you can't be. I mean, you can. You're probably not going to get caught, but that's just not. It's not. You know, it's the risk. It's not best practice. It's not best practice because you get one of those little knocks, even if you don't get caught or whatever thing like that's going to get somebody from stopping from saying, "Hey, I don't want to invest in you. I don't want to connect with you. I don't want to, you know, anything like that."
Well, it's the risk. There's such big risk anymore. And the damage hurts everybody, right?
Yeah.
If we clean up our best practices and we can prove that it's safe by following the rules and less trouble and less harm or risk for consumers, is where we're going to make the most progress on changing rules and making it more accessible, right? I'm going to ask you another question. I hate when we talk and I try to take notes and I cannot focus today. MLMs, Utah is set up for a manufacturing hub. That's something I'm really passionate about in this industry, is bringing processing of CBD to Utah. Now, realistically, our climate isn't set out to be the best for growing. I mean, when we compare it to Oregon or Washington or the Midwest for fiber, we really aren't the ideal, quote unquote, you know, we're not going to put out the most compared to everybody in the world, in the US. However, we're still processing and growing, and to be able to manufacture and distribute through our MLMs, we have a lot of power there when we put our footprint, I believe, on the map in the United States. What are your thoughts there as far as projection for additional labs? And like you said, you're going to get a lot of these MLMs that are going to buy up, but what about actual new labs coming in because of our inland port and ability to distribute internationally?
Yeah, you can see that. I think it's going to take a bit, just because for people to even catch on to, people from outside of Utah to catch on to really anything going on in Utah. You know, it seems like takes a little while for things to trickle out. I've noticed, like, even when I first moved to Utah, people were like, "Is CBD even legal in Utah?" And I'm like, "It's legal everywhere. Like, it's not like it's especially, you know, restrictive here compared to things." So I think the biggest block, I think they will come, but I think the biggest block is one, like, a lot of people don't really know anything about that. A lot of MLMs are from Utah. They don't understand the whole manufacturing thing. So I think as that starts to take off, yeah, there will be more investment. And I think it's the same story, though, in Utah that you're having everywhere in the country, is the fact that, so last year, when after CBD and hemp was federally legalized, I mean, hemp acreage and hemp licenses went up by 10x or whatever, you know, but processing licenses only went up by 2x. And processing, and then even when they went up, that's just licenses. That's not total capacity, because it's a lot of smaller, because it takes a lot of capital investment, a lot, way more. If you're a farmer and you know how to farm, you can plant hemp. You know what I mean? You can do it. Like, you may not be the best at it, but you can do it. There's nothing stopping you.
Right.
To be a processor, there's
science,
millions of dollars, you know, regulatory concerns that are much more, you know, like that are so detailed, because it's the final leg, you know, before it actually gets to the consumer almost.
And knowledge of the product you're purchasing. So really, in order to be a processor, you don't have to be just a scientist. I mean, you could, right? But to operate a business in the processing space, I've kind of divided the industry into 3 different places, right? Like genetics, or seeds, to cultivation, extraction, to isolate, basically ingredients, and then manufacturing of product to distribution, right?
Yeah.
And to be this middle piece, you have to have so much knowledge. I mean, even ingredients piece also, right? Or the not ingredients, the manufacturing of the end user product or the consumer product. But in that middle piece, knowing that your product you're purchasing also has to be high quality. Product in is product out when you're in the extraction space. And I have a lot of people, because I feel like the price margin, or where the biggest hit in the industry this last year was in your vertical, in this, when I saw isolate drop from thousands of dollars to less than $500 a kilo. When we get flooded in the market, you know, it really jumps up and down even within a few months. And I have a lot of people that come in and want to invest in this space specifically. And just like you said, starting from scratch is going to be a very different game than coming into something that's, you've already made all the mistakes. You've already learned the technology. You know what works. You know what crude you can purchase. You know the best quality of crude that works with your extraction technology, right? You know what your end buyers are looking for. So you know if you're going to be producing more tea-free versus full spectrum versus isolate. Yep. It's a lot. It's been my favorite piece of the industry to learn. Hands down.
I love it. I love processing in general. It's so, I've been a grower. And like I hate growing. I hate it. It's so much easier working with dead things. Like, there's no offense to any growers. Your thing, but like,
and I was everybody that loved it. Like
that loves it. Like I was a facility supervisor on the worst. Like, we went in and took over a building that was just built from the ground up horribly. So I mean, I would have rooms flooding on a daily basis. I would have whole crops dying. I would have hallways flooding and water like half an inch thick underneath the transformer, because that's how the building was built, like freaking out, wondering if I'm going to kill everybody, you know, like it's craziness. So I got my fill of growing there. I love processing. Like you said, being that middle piece, that's what I really like about it, is because I have people coming from all sides asking me questions, and we have to work with the genetics and the seed people in order to help create the proper biomass that can be grown and then extracted, because so many people think that it's all the same, you know, it's growing for extraction or smokable flower it's all the same, and it's not in the least bit. And so then being there in the middle is I'm working with everybody. And then also along the end, the CBD manufacturers. And the biggest thing though is, I mean, our raw materials are what makes them CBD product manufacturers. So that's why we really like to work with these companies and help them as much as we can, because we know that our raw materials are what makes them who they are. You know what I mean? So if we're not doing, as I said, if we're not keeping it, it's not just about high quality, it's consistent and reliable month after month. It's that high quality, but it's also going to stay that consistently high quality. Or if you're not, let's say you're not shooting for the highest quality, you're shooting for a little lower quality, but you want it to be that because you're looking for a certain price point, or you don't want something as strong, or for any number of reasons. That's as long as you can. You're just working with so many different people, and you have to deal with so many different concerns, but then you're really, just like I said, you're a linchpin in the industry, and I really love that. And that's what's really cool too, is like I said, there's so many people have started a farm, so many people have launched brands, but there's not a lot of new processors out there. And especially what you talked about in the industry is very true. And actually we're doing pretty good. We're pretty lucky because me and my partner and I, Dan, we already had we were going to do a hemp startup. Actually, that's why we already had a business plan and all this other stuff when we met these people at this company. So we had it all ready to go, and we were just looking, and we're like, we're not going to be able to compete with, you know, the big people. But what we saw was that there was an opportunity, and in processing like that, it just gives you a chance to really get in there. And if you can do that and see what's up. So Dan and I, we forecast when it was still at, like, isolate was still at like 6,000-7,000. We put it down to 2,000 because we're like, it may go. We don't know. We didn't think it was going to go that low. It did. It's gone even lower. But since we did that, we're not hurting too hard. And since we're a newer company, we don't have a lot of the overhead that the other companies have. So Gen Canna, Chapter 11, Folium Biosciences, they had their merger, literally canceled. And Mile High is everybody. They're just not doing too great, you know. So
Right.
it is what it is. And so that's because, I mean, they,
Well,
yeah.
and can I talk real quick about why I feel like it's been like that, and give me your opinion? I see a lot of, I describe this industry, and a lot of people say this is, well, why are they already out of business? Or why is it why is it up and down like this? And, in this vertical, we're talking about, on the processing side or the lab and technology side, technology changes kind of like when computers came out originally. We bought a computer and 6 months later, it was outdated. Same thing. You guys come in and you invest millions of dollars on extraction technology, and literally 6 months later, new technology has come out, or better, or the process is bigger, or somebody else is processing thousands of kilos a month instead of 100 kilos a month. And it just has, and then when the supply chain is cut on our big buyers, we have a surplus of product now on the market that I see that changing. As soon as that opens up, the need and the demand now becomes, it'll flip again, or potentially can flip again, right? But we went from price margins being big to very narrow in a very short period of time, because growers, and now our growers, we had this surplus of product, and now we have less product as far as biomass or flour on the market again, and we go back to this, egg before the chicken or chicken before the egg, because we have buyers that need and product that's over a surplus, and then no product and buyers. But on the technology side and the investment side, I applaud you guys, and I applaud these big companies, even like Gencana that came in, because they did a really good job initially, and they forecasted and grew with the expectation that the need and demand was still there. And then when it stops, when you scale and you have technology, and I can't tell you how many labs I've walked into that are installing millions of dollars in equipment, and there's
CO2
other
equipment.
yeah, well, even ethanol equipment, right? And they're new and they're startup and they can't get it nailed, and they've got thousands of pounds of biomass sitting in their yard, in their, and it just, and then
I see what you think.
Yeah, because just like you said, as that product sits, it loses its concentration.
Yep.
So it's hard. Anyways, I applaud.
I agree 100%.
Is a real thing, and you guys that have gotten in early, it's been your advantage and disadvantage for sure. And I really think these companies, like you said, that are going to come in and buy, and they'll let you guys make the mistakes, or not you, but these other big companies, like you said, Gencana and Folio and Mile High. And
that's what I think is nice. They're the ones that got in early, and I mean, especially at the time, the last 5 years, there's been this green rush attitude, just in general, in all of cannabis, that, there's going to be investment. If you build it, they will come. And so there was always investment. People thought they were going to get rich, and then in this past couple of years, we've seen, hey, that it's not a green rush. That investment has dried up, that capital, because, just all these companies haven't been able to live up to the hype. And, it's a huge regulatory and industry that's still not, completely
it's like
and done. So
it's almost like when internet or telephones came out. These people that got into it early and really paved the way for what we now use on a daily basis. Same thing. This is a brand new industry, a brand new technology, and there's a lot of profit and loss. So yeah, I'm excited to see you guys doing well. Justin has a really good question right here. How much crossover do you see in GMP and LIM software in your operation?
I don't know what an LIM software is.
I don't either. Justin, if you're still listening, I would love to know. He actually has a really cool software, batch tracker, hemp batch tracker. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's awesome on anybody buying product from other farms or along the way. It basically tracks the whole thing, the whole piece. It's awesome.
That makes sense. So that software, that's part of our quality management system. Laboratory interference. We are about to integrate one of those systems. I was just talking with our quality manager 2 days ago, and then also our purchase and inventory manager. We're trying to create a system that anyone can really see exactly what levels, what we're forecast to produce. Laboratory inventory, exactly. So
His
yeah,
software is awesome.
excellent. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm. That is definitely something that we're in the middle of implementing right now.
Interesting. Very, very cool. Hi, Tana. What do you see Utah needs for Utah's growth? Where do you see we as an association or collectively, organizations that are doing it right? What do we need to do to really move the needle in Utah to make Utah a place for hemp manufacturing and production, distribution, not just successful Utah or nationally, but globally?
Yeah, I think the number one thing we have to do is let people know that we even have it here in Utah. People literally have no idea. When we first started last year, I joined this company. Next month will be 1 year, and I spent the first 5 months doing a lot of going to conventions, going to posts on Instagram marketing, just getting our name out there, meeting people, meeting brands, meeting everybody, and so many people I talk, oh yeah, we're in St. George, Utah. People automatically just think Salt Lake. So that's one thing. So they don't realize, like, when I'm in Vegas, that I live 2 hours up the road,
And you live in the best part of the whole state, in my opinion.
I love it. I love St. George. It's amazing. I'm constantly at Zion or Panglish Lake or Kolob or something. It's great. It's amazing.
Snow Canyon, Grand Canyon, Zion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Grand Canyon's 20 miles south. Yeah, exactly. No, I love it over there. So, but the biggest thing is people will be like, Utah, like I said, people will be like, is CBD legal in Utah? Or then also people don't even realize, they don't know anything about cannabis in Utah. And so, like, actually it's got medical marijuana. Still can't buy it yet, but it's coming, and so, but people just have no idea. And then I noticed we started to become, and we actually had to stop our marketing because it was going a little too well, and we weren't quite ready to start producing. So too many people were kind of starting to touch. We were becoming known as like the guys from Utah, like the Utah people, because most people really just don't know anything about the Utah industry. So I think if we could start getting it just out more, that there is a large industry here, and that this is, I think that's going to be just really key for people to then think, oh, because we're, like you said, yeah, it's an inland port, have a lot of manufacturing, still very close to the West Coast, but cost of living is like less than half, you know what I mean? So I think once people start to realize that, though, I definitely think people just have to know that there's an industry here, and then really I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, that is my mission. I don't know if we talked very much or spoke very much, but we've recently launched two. One is an association of hemp associations, a global organization that will hopefully move the needle and create opportunity for a sustainable economy. And equally partnered with that, we launched a media company, a global hemp media company, so that we can create this information and knowledge. And just like you, when I first got into the industry about a year ago, so I'm really new, but about a year ago, I started traveling to as many trade shows and events as I could, just to meet people and learn as much as I possibly could. And I heard often that Utah, they're very reserved because of the image or the message around MLM. And understanding Utah has 4,000 plus MLMs in Utah alone, right? We as a culture have been taught very well how to sell and how to grow business. And so I worry a little bit about the stigma, because in that industry, there's a lot of negative feelings around it, right? There's a lot of theft and a lot of ill-feeling. Equally as much, though, I hear all the time, Utah is very well known for manufacturing. And everyone that I talk to says, oh, Utah is going to be a place on the map. Utah is the place on the map for manufacturing. And so I think that there is a lot of knowledge, especially knowing that the inland port is here and our distribution power. But I think it is going to be a matter of us doing it right.
Yeah. I would say the knowledge is more on the actual CBD hemp cannabis industries in Utah, not necessarily the manufacturing, like you're saying. Yeah, I think too many people, it's like just because of they think because of Utah and Mormonism and everything, they think is that, you know, that's more what I mean when I talk about it. Yeah, that's the industry that people need to understand is here, and people are actually doing is what I'm saying. Yeah, but the manufacturing, we have that whole infrastructure ready to go. That's why I think that it could be huge, like you're saying. Yeah.
Well, and I'd love to continue this conversation more and see where we can kind of support each other, or where we as an association can really support you in growth, you know, and distribution, and then as much involvement as we can, you know, from you and your partner, wherever we need to go so that we can set Utah up and your distribution up. That's our goal. Those that are doing it right, but also on the products being purchased. On when buyers are buying, what do you typically see they're focused on, and where do you see that changing or moving to? Do you think it's going to continue an isolate focus, or do you think CBD full spectrum is going to be more of a focus?
Gotcha. You talk about, yeah, for the, like, what goes into the products, isolate is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's not going to stop. It's standardized. There's no risk of THC. I mean, there is if you do it badly, but I mean, as long as you get, you know, no THC, it's not gonna, there's nothing like, there's no THC. It has long shelf life. You know exactly how much you're putting in. It doesn't change each time. It's isolate, you know what I mean? If you're doing your manufacturing, exactly. Full spectrum distillate, there's different qualities, different levels, different cannabinoid profiles, different, you know, terpene profiles. And then on top of that, you legally can't ship it across state lines above 0.3%. So I was actually just talking to somebody 2 days ago about how the full spectrum market is bottoming out. Not bottoming out in price. Excuse me. I keep using that term, and is
Plummeting
is going away. Is like, it's not necessarily, it's not going to go away completely, but just because it's, you know, people are now following those rules, it's harder to ship across, like I said, harder to ship across state lines. It's not standardized. Full spectrum is it's always going to be around for, like, people that like that whole entourage effect, but it's just harder to, you know, to make a standard product every time and even get it in bulk. Exactly. So isolate is getting huge. Compliant full spectrum is actually starting to get bigger, where you're diluting it to below 0.3%, but you're not diluting it. Actually, you're taking out the THC through chromatography. So your 1 kilo of full spectrum distillate becomes about, you know, like 0.8 of a kilo, 4/5 of a kilo, or whatever, and it has no THC in it. And so now it's at 0.2%. So stuff like that is starting to get more popular. But it's
right. What? That's THC remediation.
It's THC remediation, but you're remediating the full spectrum straight from the full spectrum. So like it is just remediation, but it's the fact that now it's not diluted. That's just the whole point, or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that is THC remediation. Too many people think that when I talk about dilution, excuse me. Yeah. So you know what you're talking about. My bad.
That's okay. I speak big terms sometimes, and most people don't. Somebody actually just asked if anyone in Utah is doing remediation. And yes, I know quite a few labs that are, and I assume you are. Are you accepting product? I was going to ask you earlier. I know right now for your specific product that you're moving, you guys are growing, right? But are you accepting, if I'm a farmer and I've got 10 acres and I've got product, will you extract? Are you extracting other people's product? And is that on a split, or is it a cost per liter or per pound, or how does that work?
Gotcha. We're not doing tolling. At this time, we still have a couple 100,000 pounds from last year that we've been going through. Once our large extractor goes on, we'll go through that, and then we have 700 acres about to come off. Maybe towards the end of next year, before the harvest, if we run out of our harvest, we might do some tolling. But as of right now, we're not doing any of that, and we're not. I don't have any idea on splits or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious, as far as like services provided or where you're at, but what's your volume currently, and where do you expect to be?
Currently we're doing about like, we're doing like 1,000 kilos a month or so of product or whatever, and just but because we're just ramping up our production. But I mean, once we get full production here, beginning of next year, like end of this year, beginning of next year, we'll be several, 3,000 to 5,000 kilos a month of product.
That's good.
Yeah.
Help me understand on product in, product out. How many pounds of wet equal a pound of dry? How many pounds of dry product to get a liter potentially of isolate? I know that depends on percent of CBD in, on your plant, but on estimate, if I've got 10,000 pounds, what of say 10% CBD or 12% or more CBD, what can I expect to get out?
Honestly, I do not have that on the top of my head. I have that exact diagram, but I said I'm traveling, so I don't have my computer in front of me right now. But we've done that, but I cannot remember, and I don't want to just say. But it's
I could guess, but I don't want to. I don't know your technology, so I'm not sure. But I'm curious as far as
honestly, I actually cannot remember. I really can't. So I'm sorry about that.
I'm going to guess and tell me if I'm off. If it's about 45 pounds of wet product to 1 pound of dry product, or 45 pounds of dry product to 1 liter of crude.
Sounds
I think my wet and dry is wrong.
Sounds a little high to me, but maybe, but yeah, it's about right.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I always wonder because honestly, when somebody says I have 15 acres, what does that mean? How dense did you plant? What's there? How many plants are there? What are you getting out? It's hard to pound to extraction or, pound extraction. I think is easier for me to understand.
Gotcha.
Are you mostly outdoor grow? I saw you have some indoor greenhouses.
The indoor that's just like genotype honey. So we're just, but the outdoor is where we do. That's all for propagation and for, as I said, we're just geno hunting right now.
What type of harvesting equipment are you using?
This year we're going to be doing a separator combine. So last year we did whole plant because it's what we had to do. But this year we're going to have a separator combine. So it's automatically separates the stalks and the stems from the flower. So we'll be extracting pure flower. We'll be drying on site and then storing. We'll have to store a lot of it on the farm and then just be taken over. Then every month we'll be getting a shipment in.
What's your opinion on wet extraction and where the market's going with solventless extraction? Or I shouldn't say where it's going, where there's a lot of talk about solventless or water extraction.
We were looking at water extraction beforehand, before we decided to go with ethanol. It's the numbers that people talk about on water is pretty interesting. It's still quite new, but the thing is, like, people love to talk about solventless and all this other stuff. Like ethanol extraction, ethanol is the most used solvent in the entire nation. It is in every single manufacturing process or extraction process. Damn near that.
Yep.
Every product that we use has ethanol. That's why it's like, or sorry, not has ethanol, but a lot of them are used to extracted by ethanol. It is the most used solvent in the entire country for manufacturing. So I think in this industry, when people talk about solventless and what, like, it's so much better, I honestly think that there's just different ways of extracting. Just like there's still CO2, there's still a need for, butane extraction if that's what you're creating your product for. But also, like, the ethanol is water extraction it's a newer science. Ethanol extraction's always been there, and that's where I see the long term, especially if you want to. When it comes to, that's the other thing, is industries are now that cannabis is legal, CBD, hemp industry are taking their knowledge and then putting that towards cannabis. And the industry and other industries have a lot of experience with ethanol extraction already. They know it, they love it, they use it all the time. I think that water extraction will grow and it will be big, but I think it's just still new. And I think it's the science is there, but I think that water extraction has a place, but I very much see the future as ethanol extraction for right now, just because it's already used so much in every other industry. They're not about to switch up what they do, basically.
Well, look at Israel. I go back to the countries that Israel is very, very highly regulated, but cannabis and hemp, they've been allowed to study the whole time. It's been unavailable for us. What are they using for extraction? Ethanol.
Yeah.
Right. They have the most advanced technology. However, I do I do see value in water extraction. And I don't know that it's necessarily for food, but the ability to extract the volatile compounds and the full profile that's lost during the drying process. And you have to dry for ethanol and CO2. And that's the part that I really am interested in. And it's that piece that's unknown, right? But when we talk plastics and rubbers and fibers, and that's where I see water extraction being so valuable, because it's not the way the compound binds, it's what you're getting out, or what you're able to extract. Be interested in, and I'm just putting that out there. I don't know, but as I look into
cool.
it,
I hadn't really thought about that as much.
When we talk rubbers and plastics and refining, I mean, we live right at the heat of, right at the point of the mountain where there's a ton of, in Salt Lake, we've got the big refineries. Eventually they're going to be hemp. They're going to be ran out of hemp in Canada.
A lot of them, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on today. I've had a great time talking to you. I'd love to come down and see your facility, and anything that we can do to support you guys, please let me know. If there's anything up at any topics or, things we need to address as a state or on the whole, please stay in touch. I'll send you an invite for the next association meeting that we have on August 18th. If anybody else is interested that's listening and wants to get on, please holler, or wants to join us at our meeting, please let me know. I'm happy to send you an invite as well. Other than that, how do people get in touch with you and your organization if they want to reach out?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Anderson Bryant.
I'm going to share it right now.
Excellent. You'll find me there. And then my email address is abryant@redmesascience.com.
Cool. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do. Enjoy your trip. I'm jealous. I'll come down to St. George here before too long and harass you.
Excellent. I would recommend waiting till September. It's about to be August is a little too much.
Where do you mind what area you kind of live in? I used to live in St. George down in Santa Clara.
Okay. I live in, what's it called? Green Valley. I think it's like the west side. And then, but our facility is off of River Road.
Okay. Very good. And then your farm's in Green River?
Our farm is in Green River. Yeah. I always get where I live in. I always get Green Valley and Green River.
Green River.
Yeah.
I actually almost lived in Green Valley. You guys are by a golf course down there, aren't you?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I almost rented a house and I didn't, because it also had green carpet in Green Valley.
Very cool. Not that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. If anybody needs anything, holler at me. I can help connect to Anderson and his team. Other than that, goodbye, and we'll see you guys. Enjoy your weekend. See you Monday.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Bye,
Absolutely.
everybody. Thank you.
See you.
Cheers.